Welcome to a CNY Wrestling podcast. This is part 1 of the 2016 to 2017 Class AA previews.
Ladies and gentlemen, Class A is in the books, and while it was fun, it is time for Class AA to take center stage in the 2016-2017 Section 3 Class Previews. If you have not yet seen Part 3 to the Class A previews, be sure to check that out. Not only are the final teams in the class previewed, but some final team and pound-for-pound rankings are revealed as well. I appreciate you guys coming to check this video out, and I am very excited to talk about Class AA and the teams within the group. To start things off, we're going to get right into the heavy hitters like I mentioned last video. We're going to be previewing Baldwinsville, the combined team of CBA JD and Central Square within this video. So I say, let's get right to it. Before we get into the teams, I wanted to talk about Class AA as a whole to begin. The Section 3 Class AA field of teams always brings its fair share of talent to the D1 side of the section, and last year was no different. This year doesn't look like it's going to be any different. Last year, Class AA took up 8 of the 15 championship slots at the Section 3 tournament. I said Class A took up 7. Class AA also took up 3 of the top 5 team spots as well. Those 3 teams are the teams we're going to be talking about today: Baldwinsville, CBA JD, and Central Square. Right behind those 3 were Liverpool, Rome Free Academy, and Cicero North Syracuse, who were 3 other Class AA teams that finished inside the top 10 at the Section 3 tournament. So 6 out of 10 teams in the top 10 for Class AA, 3 of the top 5, 8 of the 15 champions all came from Class AA. They have just a little bit of an edge on Class A when you look at last year's stats, but throughout recent times, Baldwinsville has proven to be the more dominant team in Class AA. Not by far, but by enough. In fact, the Bees have won 6 out of the last 10 Class AA tournaments, and also 2 out of the last 5 Section 3 D1 team championships, which was an impressive fact considering teams like Fulton and Indian River from Class A, along with the other talent in the teams in Class AA, like we've been talking about, CBA, JD, Central Square, and all them. Baldwinsville has had to accomplish all of these things while going up against some very strong teams, like I just said, including Central Square and Liverpool, because Central Square and Liverpool are the 2 teams that have knocked off Baldwinsville in the last 10 years to gain Class AA championships. I think Liverpool did it not too long ago, actually, within the last couple years. But we also can't forget about Fayetteville Manlius, Syracuse Institute of Technology, or West Genesee, because all 3 teams had multiple place finishers at the 2016 Section 3 tournament, and SIT even had a sectional champion. So with that early rundown of Class AA as a whole, I think now we're ready to begin with the Class AA previews and with the Baldwinsville Bees. We just talked about the recent success of Baldwinsville, so now I think it is time to talk about what kind of success it looks like they'll have coming up here in the near future. If their returning class is any indication, it looks like Baldwinsville's trend of successful winters will certainly continue. The Bees return 2 Section 3 runner-ups from last season that are certainly going to be hungry to grab the top spot this February. Seniors Jeremy Pond and Dan Fawaz. Fawaz was also a runner-up at the Class AA tournament. Pond actually earned a Class AA championship, and it was also at a weight class above the one he had been wrestling at for a majority of the regular season. So he's actually able to bump up in weight and still take a class title and a section runner-up finish. Pond and Fawaz, though, are just 2 pieces of the extremely talented senior group that Baldwinsville has. The Bees are going to have quite the senior night when the time comes next season, because joining Pond and Fawaz as 12th graders are Jake Naples, he's been 3rd in Section 3 twice, Tyler Patrick, who's been 4th and 5th in Section 3, David Rush, who has been 3rd, 2 times 5th place, and 6th place in Section 3. He's a 4-time placer. Michael Spicer, third in Section 3, and Thor Sutphin, third and fifth in Section 3. Just to run that down again, on top of Jeremy Pond and Dan Fawaz, Baldwinsville is bringing Jake Naples, Tyler Patrick, David Rush, Michael Spicer, and Thor Sutphin to the table in terms of talented seniors, which makes it appear that Baldwinsville will handle the loss of 5 sectional tournament wrestlers that they actually lost to graduation. It looks like they're going to handle it just fine. The talent is spread all throughout the lineup as well, because last season Naples was a lightweight, Patrick, Pond, and Rush were middleweights, and Sutphin, Fawaz, and Spicer were heavyweights. Joining Naples in the lightweights was junior Jacob Cavallo, who really made a name for himself with a third in Class AA and a fifth in Section 3 in the tough 106-pound weight class that we've discussed a little bit in Class A. Even more impressive, it all came in what appears to have been Cavallo's first full year on varsity. So right away, stepping in a big spot for Baldwinsville, he succeeded very well. Also aiding the junior class of Baldwinsville alongside Cavallo will be Alex Candy. He's a middleweight. He showed flashes of potential last year as part of Baldwinsville's typically deep roster that can sometimes have multiple contenders for the class and the section at the same weight class. So there's going to be guys like Candy who have lots of potential but might not get all the matches because there's just other guys at the same weight class that are getting the matches instead. To wrap it all up, I would say Baldwinsville has one of, if not the most talented returning classes on the D1 side of Section 3, even compared to some of the teams from Class A. And so I certainly see them grabbing another Class AA team championship if they stay healthy. That's right, kicking things off, the very first team that we're previewing here, I have them as my top team for Class AA with Baldwinsville. One of their top challengers is going to be the combined team of CBA Jamesville DeWitt, who I am personally coining as the Brother Rams. I didn't come up with that. I read it somewhere in the forums, but that's how I'm going to refer to them probably in these videos. All jokes aside, though, CBA JD is a serious contender on the D1 side of Section 3. For evidence, they were 4th place at last year's Section 3 tournament. If you need more evidence, just look at the fact that the Brother Rams, finished runner-up at last year's Class AA tournament, and they finished highest among all Section 3 teams at the Division I New York State tournament. I think they were 28th among all teams at the tournament, which was the highest of any Section 3 team. And the man responsible for that finish at the state tournament is junior Matt Griffin. Griffin garnered all of CBA JD's points with a 3rd place all-state finish that included 3 pins at what I thought was just an insane 99-pound bracket. I went through and I was a little skeptical to if Griffin could even place, and lo and behold, he just powered his way to 3rd place. It was incredible. Griffin wasn't alone at the state tournament, though. Senior Jonah Cavallo was also a Section 3 champion after what was really a Cinderella type of run through the 138-pound bracket in D1. That 138-pound bracket was talked a lot about how deep it was, probably the deepest one on the D1 side of the tournament and one of the deepest in recent years. And not many people were picking Cavallo to win that. I know I didn't. And lo and behold, he beat his teammate on the way there. He beat Stefan Colbert from Indian River, who we mentioned. And then he actually beat Jeremy Pond of Baldwinsville, who we just mentioned in the finals. And just a string of great matches and great performances by him. And what was one of the more inspiring performances of the day at the Section 3 tournament. Right behind Griffin and Cavallo was junior Garrett Bauer. Bauer pulled off one of the biggest upsets at the Section 3 tournament in order to reach the finals. In those finals, at 113 pounds, he lost to a 4-time Section 3 champion and New Hartford graduate Kellen McKenna. But Bauer he pulled off the upset in the semifinals against Wyatt Willis in sudden victory overtime. And I did not see that one coming either. I don't think anyone really did, and it was a big moment for CBA JD. To have Bauer make the finals and Cavallo win the whole thing, that was just it was almost a sense of overachieving for CBA JD. It was a great day for them last year at the Section 3 tournament. But to continue on here, those three wrestlers could be enough to get CBAJD fans excited about the upcoming season. But then you have to throw in a guy like Jake Wright, and that increases the excitement that much more because Wright was a Class AA champion. He was fourth in the section after a 1-point loss in the semifinals. And at that tournament, he was joined in the same weight class in the same bracket by teammate and sophomore Adam Honus. Honus was third in Class AA, but he unfortunately lost by 2 points in his pigtail match at sectionals, so he wasn't able to place. But for CBAJD to send two wrestlers at the same weight class to the sectional tournament last year and to bring both of those wrestlers back this year, that's got to be exciting for them. Honus, he has been making improvements since his 8th grade season on varsity. Now that he's a sophomore, since he has some sectional experience last year, look for him to be even more, to do a little better this year. And now this group of contenders that we've talked about is enough to establish CBAJD as a serious team in Section 3, all these returners. But if the trust I have in the CNY Wrestling Forum is going to reign true, the return of Tyler Kellison, who is a former Section 3 runner-up, who also pulled off a big upset in the semifinals at 113 pounds 2 years ago, just like Bauer did last year, is a big addition to the roster, as is the debut of Miles Griffin, who is a national champion youth wrestler and likely to be one of the top lightweights in the section. And so that's just going to push CBAJD up the rankings in Class AA and Section 3. I have them, after much debate within my mind, I'm going to have them third in my preseason Class AA rankings. I don't see any or too much of an issue with that. They were second last year, and so while I think they drop a spot, I don't think that they I think they still are just as good as they were last year. I think the fourth in Section 3 that they were last year, that's going to hold true. They'll be a top 5 team again. And so I think all signs are pointing to positives for CBAJD. But speaking of the team that I have one spot ahead of them in my preseason Class AA rankings, we're going to talk about Central Square now. Central Square has an absolutely exceptional crop of seniors coming into this 2016-17 season, and it's one of the reasons many people feel the Redhawks can repeat their performance from last year as a top 5 team in Section 3. It's hard to argue with that, really, when the 3 wrestlers who qualified for the New York State tournament are back for more action this year. Those 3 wrestlers are Max Edmond, Phoenix Webb, and Isaac Havens. Havens was a wild card qualifier for the New York State tournament. He was a runner-up in the section. But while Webb and Edmond were champions at their respective weight classes, Havens actually won the most matches out of anyone in the trio at Albany, and he was just 1 match away from placing in D1. So that makes it really hard to pick the best pound-for-pound Central Square wrestler. But it makes it pretty easy to consider Central Square as a threat, a big threat in Section 3. Because they have truly become that in recent years. Joining Edmond, Webb, and Havens as leading seniors on the team is going to be Mac West. He won over 20 matches for the first time in his career. He was one of the favorite heavyweights, a big heavyweight contender, and I think he actually got hurt at the Class AA tournament, so his season didn't end how he wanted. But like I said, he was a viable contender before his year ended due to injury. And much like freshman Brandon Ludman's season ended to injury right when it was looking like he was going to be a contender, that neither guy, West or Ludman, really got to reach their full potential. Ludman actually got hurt all the way in December after starting out looking like he was going to be one of the better lightweight contenders on D1. But with all these injuries, there's actually another injury that I almost forgot to mention. Freshman Peyton Ruprock had his season end early due to injury as well at the Class AA tournament. He started out 25-7. He was a favorite to win the section at 116 pounds, but he wasn't able to make it through the whole postseason to wrestle at the Section 3 tournament, which was unfortunate. But he'll likely be back along with Ludman, along with West. All those guys are going to get points for Central Square that they did not get last year. We'll talk about that a little more in a second. I want to talk about sophomore Andy Nicholson as well because he escaped the injury bug for the postseason. And with all those guys out of action, he was really forced to anchor the lightweights without Ludman or Proct, and he did so with a third at Class AA. He was also a third the year before, and then the year before he also ended up fifth in the section, so he has been very successful in the past. And now, like I was saying, considering Central Square was fifth in Section 3 last year, despite not having the points they could have had from West, Ludman, and Ruproct, bringing those guys back, along with bringing Edmond, Webb, and Havens back as serious sectional favorites, it makes you wonder how successful the Redhawks could have been last year and how successful they will be this year if everyone stays healthy. And I think that they're going to be successful to the point where they will be the top challengers to Baldwinsville when it comes to winning the Class AA team championship. I have them in second, a spot ahead of CBA JD, just because Edmond, Webb, and Havens, they are serious contenders to win postseason championships. Webb and Edmond already have, and then Havens won 2 matches at the state tournament. And so those guys have really set themselves apart as some of the best pound-for-pound wrestlers in Class AA. And then Central Square has guys returning that did not get to earn points at the Class AA tournament last year because of injury, with West and Ruproc and Ludman. And so I see with all those points playing into Central Square's total as well, that I think they're going to take the number 2 spot right behind Baldwinsville. That is going to wrap it up for part 1 of the Class AA previews. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't stretch this one a little too long. Come back for part 2 of the previews. We're going to be talking about CNS, Cicero North Syracuse. We're going to be talking about FM, Fayetteville Manlius, and we'll also be talking about SIT, which is the Syracuse Institute of Technology. All 3 of those teams have notable contenders for Class AA and D1, so you're going to want to see what I have to say about those teams. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed all the videos so far, and I hope to see you next time.
You just heard about him, so check out CNYWrestling.com's interview with Baldwinsville's Jeremy Pond. Check back on October 15th for part 2 of the Class AA previews.